So I'm just gonna pull some colors really quick. Let's mix up some of that brown, that blackish brown. So I'm taking ultramarine PB29, putting a fair amount of water in it because I don't want this to be very thick. And to that, I'm going to add some PBR7, or what is known as burnt sienna. And the beauty of this mix, it's a classic mix. It'll make gray, it'll make a very warm black. The beauty of it is you can push it warm, you can push it cold. So this is pretty cold. Now I use French ultramarine, which is a granulating pigment. Regular ultramarine doesn't granulate, so you're gonna see like little dark bits. So you can push it warm and it turns into a brown. You can bring it back by adding a little bit more blue and it becomes a cooler brown, almost a black. And I'm looking at that and I'm liking that color. Be a tad more blue, maybe. Yeah, that's the one I want. Okay, so I'm going to add lots of water to this. Like lots of water. More water than you think you need. And then it's dirty on that side. Test it out. Yep, I want it to be like that. Now, watercolor dries lighter than what you see, so that's good. So also, if you don't know if this is the color or the consistency, if this you don't know that this is how dark you want it, test it in your darkest place. So this is my darkest place. I'm working wet on dry. We don't do anything too splashy here. So I'm putting it everywhere where I see darkness. Squeezing some of that water out. You can also use your towel to blot if you want. I'm using the tip of my brush. I'm avoiding any places where it's going to be lighter. Okay. So I can actually put this all over the wings. So I'm going to put it all over the wings. I like to work in sections. If this is dry on yours, just go ahead and go right over it. Okay. Now, let's address that shadow. This is the cast shadow. So it doesn't really go farther than here. So because I took out my guide, I need to kind of make sure I have that angle correct. Otherwise it'll throw it off. So, and it's not going to go farther than this, and it's going to be a point. And roughly this is the angle, but it's a jagged line. So, because cast shadows will always follow the form. And because he's got some tufts of feathers here, this is going to be pretty jagged. Okay, so I'm going to leave that alone and not fiddle. If you need to blot, blot. Now I'm not softening anything because this is a pretty like solid line. I'm going to ignore that and just let it dry. And so I like to go for like the darkest areas with a very light wash of the paint. And I'm looking in terms of these shadows. So he's got some feathers right here. And so I'm just going to kind of feather that in with the tip of my brush. Put some here too. I'm not switching to a smaller brush, but if you have a smaller brush and you need to switch to that, do it, because control is the most important part of all of this. Okay, so, and I'm going to put some here. So I'm kind of following the shape that I had already established and following the direction of the feathers. Again, putting in little lines, but so I'm putting it down like this. But because this paint is so watery, it will blur together, and that's fine. And now I want to put some. Now I should switch to a smaller brush because this is going to release too much water. The other alternative, if you don't have a smaller brush, pull out as much of the water as you can. And then just work with the point. And move your paper around if you need to. Okay, I'm looking at the time. Good, we have a half an hour. Plenty of time. All right, oops. So I'm going to pull a little bit at the base here. Not go crazy. Just a little bit. And see where else I want some of that darkness. Well, I'm going to want some. This is going to be fun. So go ahead and just add some water to a version of this. Blot out as much of the water as you can. And let's add some shadows under his nails and toes. And then while it's still kind of wet, rinse out your brush, blot, blot, blot. Try to soften some of those lines. And if you made a mistake like I did right there, you can pick it up. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone. So what I'm seeing, make sure I'm still on camera. Okay, so this is a pretty warm mix. I'm going to pick up some of that. I'm actually going to switch to a smaller brush. And I'm going to pick up some of my blue and move it in there. Because of what I'm seeing across here, this is a slightly bluer mix. So let's see, do I like that? Yes, I can always make it more blue later. All right, so I'm squeezing a lot of the water out, twisting my brush kind of so it makes a nice little point. And then I'm going to put in a bunch of little lines. I'm going over what I did here, and that's fine. Put your brush on its tip like this if you need to, and just really light. And I'm looking at this feather texture, and it's pretty short. So I'm going to start with some of these and then go up and stagger them. Pick up some more of that blue mixture. I'm going to start at the edge just in case I have too much paint on here. Making lots of little lines. Don't worry if there's lots of white showing through. We're going to get rid of that later. And I'm kind of following the direction that I feel the feathers are in because of his anatomy. So these are going to be more straight down here because his chest is facing us, his throat. And then these are going to curve around here. Okay, and it can go up a little. All right, so now we're back to this warm mix again. So I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to pick up some of this warm mix. And whatever temperature or color you've got here, it's pretty relative to what's next to it. So I'm looking at this and thinking this part that's under his throat is actually warmer than here and warmer than this area. Okay, that might work. So I added a little bit more burnt sienna. So I talk about this a lot. Figure out what your general local base color is, and then see if you can push it one way or another. This mix of burnt sienna and ultramarine is a perfect mix to practice that. Later on, you can start looking at a full palette of how you're going to say, this is actually a pretty warm reddish blue, but you want to push it cooler, so you could choose from a cobalt or a really cool mix of phthalo blue green shade to move this more this way without really changing the color too much. But if this is all new to you, this is the best mix to try this out with because it's really easy. It's two colors, one very warm, one cold, and comparatively cold. And then you can just create your base mixture and then push it one way or another by adding more of the blue or more of the burnt sienna. Just a little hint. Okay, so I try it down on the edge. And then I'm using little lines, little lines. And it's okay if you go into this area. Just don't follow the shape of this, follow the form of the feathers. So remember, the ones that are facing us, they're going to be straight up and down. But the ones that are curved off to the side will curve and move. That's why I'm moving my paper the whole time. So even in this area, they're gonna move to the side. So let me see what's going on here. Yeah, I can put some of this there. We're still working pretty thin mixes. Start thin and watery, work towards thick and not so watery. So I'm moving into that dark area with this mix. And I'm paying attention to little, because there's three different levels of feathers right here.